Hello and a very warm welcome to all the viewers of Detox, that is Disruptive Literacy Talks. And this is Tanmay Prakash, your host of the session. Detox aims at coming together in eradicating illiteracy and focusing upon foundational literacy and numeracy, as committed under Sustainable Development Goal 4 and in India's national education policy as well. We at Detox focus to educate and make literate all the out of the school children and the underprivileged adults. Education is a continuous and a creative process. It aims to develop the capacities latent in human nature and to coordinate their expressions for the enrichment of the society and their progress. And moreover, we believe in disrupting the status quo when best is not the enough. Moving on to today's session, that will be based upon education. And with this, I would like to introduce you with the speaker of the session, Ms. Natalie Axteen, Coordinator Member Engagement, INEE, who will be speaking upon the topic INEE connecting and supporting the work of education and emergencies practitioners worldwide. Natalie oversees the INEE network, architecture, and activities to ensure that all the individuals and the institutional members have meaningful engagements opportunities. She supports the development and the implementation of strategies for strengthening diversifying the INEE membership. She has received her master's in international relations with a focus on political economy of development from IBEI in Barcelona. She has a 6 years of experience in coordinating and strengthening networks and membership engagement for global organizations structured as alliances or the civil society movements focused on the education and the civil society issues. With this, we are very glad to have Ms. Natalie with us in the Detox. Hello, ma'am. Welcome to Detox.
Hello, Tanmay. Thank you for inviting me to the Detox session. I'm very happy to be here joining you and other audience members for this talk and presenting on the work of the Interagency Network for Education in Emergencies, otherwise known as INEE. I'm connecting, in fact, from Portugal, Lisbon, where it's noon. I know you're all, most of you are based in India, where it's evening. So really appreciative of your time and efforts to accommodate this session. Great. I guess I will start my presentation now. The basic objective of my presentation is really to support, hopefully increase your understanding of the INEE as a network and its work to advance the fundamental right to education for all of those affected by emergencies and protracted crisis. As you can see on this slide, INEE, this is our logo. Thanks. Next slide, please. Firstly, I think it would be great to define what education in emergencies means exactly. What we mean by this is referring specifically to quality learning opportunities for all ages in situations of crisis. Education in emergencies essentially, we believe, saves lives, protects well-being, fosters learning, and also nurtures development. So it's really critical. Next slide, please. Education in emergencies, as highlighted on the slide, is really critical before crisis or in preparedness, during crisis or in response, and after crisis, meaning recovery. So EIE should happen before, during, and after crisis. Next slide. Now to talk a little bit more about INEE, we're an open global network founded in the year 2000. So we already have 20 years in existence. And in fact, I'd like to highlight that we recently celebrated our 20th anniversary at the end of last year and produced a really informative stock-taking report, which looks back at 20 years of progress and challenges of INEE. I'll refer to this later, but moving again to the topic of the network, our network is really composed of members who are working together under a humanitarian and development framework to ensure that all individuals have the right to quality, safe, relevant, and equitable education. So really, this is our biggest purpose for existing as a network. And our main role here is really being this network, being this connector of EIE, or Education in Emergencies practitioners across the globe, and supporting their work in this area. Next slide, please. INEE's mission is essentially to enable quality, safe, relevant, and equitable education for all in emergencies and crisis contexts through prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. Those same words were repeated before, right? So this is exactly what we highlight in our mission as well. Next slide. INEE has 4 strategic priorities that guide the work of the network. The first one is to provide thought leadership in global advocacy. The second one is to strengthen capacity to deliver quality, safe, relevant, and equitable education for all. The third one is to provide, curate, and organize knowledge to inform policy and practice. And the fourth one is to strengthen and diversify our INEE membership. I will go into a bit more detail in terms of the activities we have surrounding these different priorities a bit later. Next slide, please. As you can see here, INEE serves its members through several key functions, and we've categorized it according to community building, convening, knowledge management, amplifying and advocating, facilitating and learning, and providing. We really serve our members through these key functions, and INEE's work is essentially shaped by them. All of its work can be classified by one or more of these. Next slide. In terms of who INEE is, or what is the membership of INEE, we're consisting of more than 18,000 individual members affiliated with more than 4,000 organizations and institutions in 190 countries. So it's a truly global network, and our members span various backgrounds, areas of expertise, contexts, languages. So it's a very diverse network, very rich in knowledge. And yeah, that's really one of our main appeals as a membership is that, by joining INEE, you get access to this huge network where you can network and learn from others, exchange your work, etc. And essentially, we exist for and because of our members, and have developed various initiatives to support members, which I'll get into soon. I'd also like to highlight that membership to INEE is free of charge. We don't charge anything, of course, and we also encourage anyone who works in the field of education and emergencies and related initiatives, could just be education, but anyone with an interest in this topic, to join us very easily by completing a simple registration form found on our website, which I can share with you later if you need it. Happy to share that. Next slide. Our membership is diverse, varied, covers various regions, various languages, backgrounds, as I mentioned. And these include INGO and UN personnel, Ministry of Education, other government staff, students, teachers, donors, researchers, all of which are engaged in the work of education in emergencies. I would actually encourage, after this presentation, those who want to have more information about the INEE membership, its composition, including ways to engage with the network and benefits of membership, to check out our members page. It can all be accessed on the page inee.org. And the page is also accessible in all five languages that we work in, which are English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Arabic. So really worth a look. Thanks. Next slide. So this slide is meant to show a snapshot of the various organizations that engage with INEE. These are just a few of the various more than 4,000 organizations and institutions which members are affiliated with. As you can see, we have organizations including, of course, the IRC, a Norwegian Refugee Council, Plan International, the big players, but also smaller NGOs, universities, research institutes. So really, this is just a snapshot to show that the membership is quite diverse. Next slide. Now I'd like to share a little bit about how INEE is structured as an organization itself. Firstly, I'll talk about the Secretariat. Basically, this is a core staff team called the INEE Secretariat that represents the network, leads and supports our network activities, and coordinates network processes, systems, and projects. So really, yes, I am obviously part of the Secretariat, and we've been growing over the years, and we're also really trying to have more diversity as well within our composition. And it's a work in progress, but I think we are moving in the right direction in expanding and in diversifying. Next slide. The INEE steering group is composed of organizational members represented by senior professionals in the field who are responsible for setting goals and plans for the network, approving new network spaces, and providing strategic guidance to the staff members. So basically, like our coordinating body of the work of INEE. Next slide. In terms of funding, INEE is supported with grant funding and in-kind contributions from governments, funds, foundations, and organizations. We're very lucky to count with such support, of course, to fund all of our activities. However, I also like to note, and this is a question that we usually get for requests for funding, INEE itself is not a funding organization, so that means we don't provide any form of financial disbursement, grants, contributions, scholarships to individuals or organizations. We only support our members through information and tool sharing, and we encourage the free use of our resources in all of the education and emergencies work. Thanks. Next slide. In terms of how we work, INEE works through interagency and consensus approaches. So as such, our network structure is different from a typical organization, and I'll explain that now in the next few slides. Next slide, please. Next slide as well. Great. So you'll see here that this is actually trying to demonstrate in a graphical way how our network spaces are designed and formed. It is still a very complex structure to explain, even for me, but I'll do my best here. As you'll see, network spaces is what we call it, and this really refers to our aim to facilitate collaboration and participation at global and regional and local levels among members and stakeholders. These spaces are also designed to foster horizontal communication and action within the membership and the broader EIE community. They vary in structure, participation, focus, and degree of formality with members participating either as individuals or through institutional representation. Next slide. Great, so this is the bubble referring to working groups. And working groups are essentially formalized structures which help to develop and promote specific work within INEE. Participation in these works are on an institutional basis. So we have organizational representatives in these groups, with individual reps for each agency. At the moment, these working groups are being reviewed and will likely undergo a restructuring process as well for the future, which will change the makeup, format of the working groups. This work is still undergoing, and we're hoping to have some updates very soon with the membership. But yeah, for now, this is an ongoing work. Next slide. Our collaboratives now are our next network space, and this refers to, they're composed of working group members and subject experts engaged around a specific thematic area. So the prerequisite is that you have to be a working group member first, and then you can join this collaborative, one of the collaboratives. And as you can see, there are 3 options at the moment. One is on data and evidence. The other one is on psychosocial and social emotional learning. And the other one is our Teachers in Crisis Context Collaborative, or TIC. Next slide. Reference groups are basically convened for specific topics or thematic areas which need expert input or guidance for a specific duration. And in these bubbles, you'll see the different topics of reference groups. We have distance education. We have another on girls' education in emergencies, another on measurement library, the psychosocial, social-emotional learning adaptive core framework, another one on education in emergencies data, and finally one on the teacher well-being toolkit. So quite a number of those are already there. Next slide. So these are the task teams, and task teams are basically member-led, semi-formal structures that allow individual members to work collectively on specific areas of interest, advocating for key thematic issues and collaboratively developing tools and resources. So while all the others are based on organizational or working group prior membership, the task teams, as you can see, allow individual members to join them. And they usually have an open process for joining. It's quite easy. You just have to go to the relevant page of the task team on the INEE page and look for information on which contact person or email to engage with to request participation or membership in the task team. And here we have the topics that are currently being addressed by task teams, which include adolescent and youth. We have one on early childhood, another on gender, another on inclusive education, also on localization, and finally on technology. Next slide. Now, regarding language communities, what we aim for language communities is for them to seek to expand and share access to resources, tools, and experience in non-English working languages, namely Arabic, French, Portuguese, and Spanish. This is noting that INEE engages with its members in these 5 official languages. I believe I already shared that. So we have, in fact, language community facilitators who are in charge of coordinating the work of their communities in these other non-English languages. We know that this doesn't cover the diversity of the INEE membership, which includes members who speak predominantly other languages, like Hindu, of course, Urdu, and Swahili, etc. But for now, this is what we have. And of course, there are ways that we can continue improving, but it has really proved to be very useful, and our members do appreciate that additional support. It's really easy to join an INEE language community. Simply, you just have to select the appropriate language community on your online INEE member profile. Once you sign up as a member, you have the opportunity to select to receive news resources in that language, for example, French or Arabic. So this is all accessible once you become an INEE member. Next slide, please. All right, so regarding key partnerships of INEE, basically INEE works in collaboration with key partners through joint strategic relationships aimed at promoting coordination, capacity sharing, advocacy, knowledge sharing, evidence building, and standard setting. As you can see, we have a number of established partnerships with Education Cannot Wait, Geneva Global Hub for Education Emergencies, Global Education Cluster, etc. All of these can be viewed on our page, inee.org/partnerships. And yeah, these are, just a few. Of course, there are other partnerships that we've developed as well. Some are not so formalized. Some are just one-off. So there's quite a diversity in this. Also, I'd like to highlight that we are open to exploring new partnerships as well to advance our mission in line with its priorities and functions. For that, I can connect you to our partnerships coordinator, Laura Davidson, and we can also discuss this afterwards with Global Dream if they have any thoughts about that specifically, maybe. But just so you are aware. Thanks. Next slide. Great. So this is referring to our tools and resources. So along with these various spaces for engagement through network spaces, we also offer a breadth or a diversity of tools and resources, which include but are not limited to our resource database, our resource collections, and our EIE glossary. Our resource database is basically a dynamic database of more than 2,600 resources relevant to education and emergencies, which are available for consultation and free download on our website. Very much suggest that as many of you interested, feel free to go there and check it out. There's lots of interesting information, helpful for your work if you're engaged in education and emergencies, as I said. And in addition to that, you can find collections or expert curated collections of resources and topics. So, for example, gender, or I believe childhood education, you can find this on our resource collections page. Very interesting, very informative, and in some cases also included in other language resources. Finally, we also have an EIE glossary, which contains more than 350 key EIE terms, their definitions, and sources in 5 languages. Next slide, please. Now, the INEE Minimum Standards Handbook, maybe some of you are already aware, INEE's flagship contributions to the education and emergency sector. It contains 19 standards with the aim of enhancing the quality of educational preparedness, response, and recovery, increasing access to safe and relevant learning opportunities, and ensuring accountability in providing these services. The standards are generic in order to be applicable to a broad range of contexts, which is why INEE offers as well contextualization guidance and support. So supporting contextualizing the standards to different countries' contexts. Next slide. So capacity building, this refers to our work on strengthening capacities to deliver quality, safe, relevant, and inclusive education for all. It includes various things related to this, initiatives such as trainings on the INEE minimum standards and on key topics that we offer to members. An e-learning portal, which was recently launched on Kaya. Kaya is the name of the platform, and you can take courses. There's a self-guided course there on education and emergencies, which I'd recommend you, if you have time, to check it out. Includes webinars, blog series. There's also something we call the INEE Help Desk, which is an initiative that we started also this year to respond to member queries and technical support requests from the membership. Yeah, so that's it on that for now. Next slide. Research and evidence. We're doing a lot in this area. Specifically, we work to strengthen the EIE evidence base and to disseminate knowledge through a variety of network spaces and work streams, including the E-Cubed Research Fund, INEE Learning Agenda, a journal on education and emergencies, and the Measurement Library. Again, I refer you to the INEE website to have a look for more information on all of these. I know it's a lot of info, so do spend some time on our website to learn more about these initiatives. Next slide. Regarding our communications, all of our communications, as you can imagine, are in our 5 working languages, which includes Arabic, English, French, Portuguese, and Spanish. Our website has also been redesigned so that it includes accessibility in these languages. We have on our website a members database, which is basically a database of INEE members that those who have created an online profile can gain access to, can find members in their country according to their thematic area of expertise, interest, language, all accessible once you become a member. And it's great for contacting other members and doing networking. So really, really useful tool. We also allow members to post jobs, news, and resources once they're logged in as a member through their online, or once they're logged in online very easily. And of course, we have blogs, which we get a lot every now and then from members. We also publish blogs ourselves, also a key member engagement initiative, all accessible on our website. In terms of our e-communications, we have 21 email lists with 20,000 plus subscribers, so quite a number of subscribers already, and this includes people in all the 5 languages mentioned above, or people who chose to receive info in those languages. Social media, we have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and SoundCloud. We also, as I said, produce communications in the 5 languages, engage with members on these social media platforms. And our website is meant to act as a go-to knowledge hub for our EIE practitioners. So really, everything I mentioned now so far, you can find on the website. So really, it's the go-to spot for more info. Next slide. Now, member engagement, and this is the part that I specifically coordinate and I'm most knowledgeable about. So Yeah, any questions related to this, I'll be really able to answer. Hopefully, yeah. But it's, yeah, member engagement is really happening all the time. I mean, throughout, from INEE Secretariat, but also between members themselves. What I'd like to highlight here is a few of our latest, two of them, I guess, new initiatives, and then one which is an ongoing initiative, but has also been really impactful in this slide. Yeah. So the first one is the INEE Community of Practice, basically a platform for peer-to-peer communications and moderated discussions on the full range of education and emergency topics in many languages. This was just launched in June, available to members only, and developed on Slack. So you can access this on Slack. And it's starting off slowly right now, but we're hoping to build up and to get more engagement. Happy to answer any questions related to this if you have any. Our country focal points, it's an initiative that I personally was engaged in, and I coordinate this initiative and supported its development, implementation, and now the evaluation phase. Basically, this refers to key reference persons at the country level who are from among the INEE membership, who are tasked to support networking and communication, particularly through the facilitation of info exchange among our members. It's a pilot initiative that started in February this year and is about to end at the end of this month. Again, if you have questions about it, how you could engage as a country focal point, or how you could engage with the existing ones, happy to answer questions on that as well. And finally, the meetups, which is shown here on the slide. It's an existing initiative already for a few years, but it's also been a really key member engagement activity, consisting of open, informal gatherings where our members and others can network, share experiences, discuss relevant topics. So these meetings have happened really, in the past, it has been all organized by, of course, volunteers all the time, but organized in cities, in the organizer cities, and in specific, physical locations. But because of the COVID pandemic, all of this has gone online. And since December of last year, we changed the structure of the meetups so that they've become fully virtual. And all the meetups have been convened through Zoom, which we have facilitated the platform for our members. Yeah, so that's a really successful initiative, I would say, and one that we get a lot of praise for in terms of the direct member-to-member knowledge exchange that is provided. Yeah. And I could also mention the various other member engagement initiatives that we have to ensure that our members have meaningful engagement opportunities. I think I already mentioned INEE webinars. These happen regularly. And during the peak of COVID, we had a very successful webinar series focusing on the impact of COVID on EIE issues. You can find all the recordings on our website if you're interested in finding out more. As I mentioned, we have the training opportunity on this new Kaya platform on education and emergencies. We also conduct regular trainings on the minimum standards. As I mentioned, we write blog posts. We encourage our members to write blog posts as well. The member directory I mentioned, you can get also various news, resources and events, advocacy materials, through our website. As I said, our one-stop shop for education and emergency practitioners, but also you can subscribe to the various mailing lists once you become a member. And then that way you get all this information directly on your inbox. So very good to do that. Yeah, so that's just that. And then I'm not sure if I recall sharing the page, but if you want to hear more about this list of how to engage and who are the members, you can go to our page, INEE.org/whoweare/members for more information. Next slide. All right, so in terms of COVID response, I already mentioned that we had a very successful COVID-19 webinar series, which took place at the peak of the pandemic, which I really highlight and encourage you to have a look at. But in addition, we also have other resources on our website, which you can find. For example, a dedicated collection on COVID-19, also including INEE technical notes on education during the COVID pandemic, a policy paper, advocacy messages, advocacy brief, collection of blog posts, and more. So really, and we are really doing our best to support our members through this difficult time during the pandemic, which unfortunately has not stopped in many parts of the world. It's still even worse. And now I know in India, it's quite a terrible period at this moment with great cases and deaths. So we are aware of that, and we want to support as much as possible the members, the partners, and communities to support the continuation of education during this crisis. Yeah. Next slide. I'm almost done. I know it's a long presentation. Yeah, so finally, our INEE vision really is just geared towards making sure that all people affected by crisis have access to quality, relevant, safe education. Education services are integrated into all emergency interventions. Governments and donors provide sustainable funding, and all education in emergencies is consistent with the minimum standards. And next slide. Great. And finally, I encourage all of you to just, as I said, to our website, member very easy, and through your own individual exploration. I hope this presentation was useful. Thanks for the time provided.
So basically, this presentation presented by you was a quick tour to INEE and their work and your work over there. So it was really an insightful information, and thank you for presenting this presentation.
You're welcome.
And I have some questions. Which I'm going to ask. Like, what are your insights on access to education in emergencies, essential for learning, and the challenges and the progress made by you and your organization till date? So please share your insights on that.
Sure. Definitely. Well, I think to start, I like to say that INEE really envisions a world where all people affected by crisis and instability have access to quality, relevant, and safe education opportunities, which is also written into our mission statement and guides the work of our global network. I'd like to share that recent data also shows that prior to the pandemic, 127 million primary and secondary school-age children and young people living in crisis-affected countries were out of school in 2019, or almost one half of the global out-of-school population. So it is quite an alarming statistic to take into account, and we really need to take that seriously. Really, what all this means is that millions of crisis-affected children and young people are being denied their right to education and their opportunity to reach the full potential. Among the factors involved in this are conflict, environmental disasters, health emergencies, forced displacements, which are barriers to completing their education. However, it's important that even though there are all of these challenges, there are ways that we can address them. And this can be done through political will, inclusive policies, greater capacity, and predictable financing for education. So these are the main areas that we suggest are taken more seriously, especially by governments. We also feel that if the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda is to be fulfilled, we need to prioritize education in emergencies. It needs to be at the top of the agenda. And despite all of these challenges, which have made the situation quite bad, there are some good signs. Notably, progress has been made in education over the last 20 years as a result of advocacy, collaboration, and monitoring of education data that began during the period of Education for All. And also the progress has been seen for education in emergency contexts. And I'm happy to say that EIE has become established as core part of the global education agenda and humanitarian response. So that is quite a win for the sector. And there are, of course, more efforts, more collaboration happening on the ground and in various levels to support education in emergencies. I would actually also point people to read our INEE 20th anniversary report found on our website, which basically lists the main challenges and progress towards education in emergency over the last 20 years. It's very informative. All the information I shared is also there. So yeah, do have a look.
Yes, and as you mentioned in your presentation that you had several webinars on COVID-19. So how did INEE deal with the COVID pandemic, and how were you able to work in that time, and how were the things all about?
Yeah, of course, it was a real challenge for us with the pandemic at the start. We were all uncertain about what that would look like, how long it would last. But I think once we got more comfortable with the situation and that it would stay here for a long time, we really invested in Zoom, the Zoom platform for engaging in consultations and webinars and meetings. That because of course we had a lot of meetings that we so with Secretariat, we're all, I guess, engaged and have engaged in, with Zoom, etc. So it worked for us. No, it's not possible for other countries, other contexts, organizations, but in our case, that was a real lifesaver. And also acknowledging, a Zoom fatigue at the same time. Everyone's just engaged in Zoom calls always, or meetings. So trying to be aware that, well-being is really important, and we cannot forget about that. Everything going on in the world pandemic. So just trying to strike a balance between work and life has also been a bit of a challenge, but I think we're making good steps to also, improve on that.
Yes, very true that the work-life balance has been somewhere or the other disturbed since the last 1.5 years, and we all are trying to emerge from these new challenges. Basically, these are the new challenges which we all are facing. And moving on, what is basically INEE's stance on early childhood development, and how does INEE supports early childhood education in emergency contexts?
Sure. So for us, the early years of a child's life are really critical, including for those, and I would say especially for those most marginalized and in vulnerable situations. The access to safe, quality, and early education can also help mitigate the effects of conflict and crisis. What we see is that evidence shows that nurturing care and holistic education, early childhood education, is essential for a child's development, protects children's physical, social, cognitive, and emotional development, sets really strong foundations for their future life opportunities, important to support them in those critical phases. And it also yields long-term economic and social returns, of course. The more you invest in children, the more you will get out, of course, and more beneficial for their own well-being and further formative years. As part of our work, we really support and promote a multi-sectoral approach to early childhood education across all humanitarian settings, which includes quality health care, adequate nutrition, protection, learning through play, which is very essential, focusing on equity and inclusion for the most marginalized children. I'd also like to highlight that INEE has an early childhood education, childhood development task team, which serves as a community of practice for those stakeholders working in this field to particularly develop and disseminate practical tools and publications to improve the delivery of this work and early education in crisis, to support advocacy efforts, policy commitments to action, and identify the needs for capacity for knowledge building, sharing with relevant stakeholders to improve programs and policies for young children. So a lot of good work is happening in this task team. I recommend you have a look again at our page to find out more about the list of activities that they've been working on, the resources that they've been producing. One of those resources that I'd like to share is a safe back to school guide for early learning practitioners. It focuses on preventing COVID-19 transmission, small group learning, home learning. Have a look at our page for more information. And additionally, we also have an issue of our journal in Education in Emergencies that just came out and is highlighting the topic of early childhood education. It's also accessible on our homepage through various lenses of work. So also that's really useful.
Yes, and it would be great if you can like share your thoughts, share your insights on the state of girls' education in this crisis.
Sure. So INEE is really strongly supporting this work of supporting girls in education in crisis. You'll see on our website again, we have a resource collection dedicated to just gender resources. We have a task team, the gender task team that works to support this work. And we have generally lots of publications and resources. But basically, I would like to say as well that for us, there's been some great, even before, in fact, COVID, there were already 69 million girls already out of school in crisis-affected countries. And with the pandemic, this saw an additional 1.6 billion children out of education. And as you can imagine, missing out of school really does long-term damage, affects girls more disproportionately than boys. And they're more likely to drop out of school. So these are the key findings that we've highlighted. We have a Mind the Gap report that gives more information on this. But also, I could say as well that there has been some progress nonetheless to achieve gender parity in education, increasing access to education for crisis-affected populations, improving data availability, and finding more reliable funding for education for girls in crisis. So really, we feel, that girls need to have that access to education, especially in these contexts. And gender-based violence and targeted attacks are really big issues that they are facing as well as a result of, lack of support. So we need to target this at the same time. It's really important. We feel that girls' education is one of the smartest investments that we can make, societies, governments, parents, everyone can make, and a game changer for development. So really, it's so important to make sure that they have the tools, the support, the infrastructure to be able to realize that right. I mentioned the Mind the Gap report, and I really recommend you have a look at this for a really comprehensive overview of the state of girls' education in crisis and conflict. and the gender task team I mentioned that works specifically with practitioners on this topic as well. And finally, I'd like to add that INEE has a new podcast series called Educate Us, and just recently launched. We're very happy, excited about it because it features stories and perspectives on women and girls' education in emergencies. And it's, made to be easy listening. If you're cooking, if you're doing exercise, you can listen to this and learn something new. So so many resources available.
Congratulations to you for your new podcast series, basically, which is on the education. And when we talk about education, so education helps us in many ways. So how can violence be mitigated through peace education, and how can education contribute towards preventing violence extremism?
Sure. So for us, one of our key guiding principles is that education protects during crisis and lays a foundation for recovery, peace, and development. So really, for those children and youth who have lived through or are living through the midst of foreign conflict, peace education is a chance they have to develop that they haven't seen will be done through this structure that can help you develop education and social justice. Peace education some programs, structured lessons on peace education. This can really support those efforts of peace building in children and in adults and youth as well. We also have a peace education collection. We almost have a collection for everything on our website, which you can refer to. I again referred to our website. And I'd like to highlight that INEE recently is working with UNESCO and the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies on a series of case studies looking at the impact of peace education in crisis contexts. And that will be published most likely in November. And I guess you also asked about preventing violent extremism. We know that this is a very complex issue and it involves different actors and stakeholders. Really, we see it as two faces to education. Education that can promote inclusion, strengthen social cohesion, develop a more engaged citizenry, but also visions, reproduce structures of exclusion and inequality, and promote harmful practices and violent behavior. So we really have to look within and beyond the classroom to address the root causes of extremism and to use education to support against that promotion of extreme, of course. And have also collection on this, which you can refer to on our website.
Yeah.
And I hear.
Yes, and now moving on, I would like to introduce
It's
you.
bad.
Yeah, you were saying something.
Yeah, I think my connection is a bit delayed, I think, because I'm hearing you. It's taking a while to hear your reply, but it's fine. I can still hear you. Sorry.
Okay. So now moving on, I would like to introduce you with the Global Dream 30 Hours Foundational Literacy and Numeracy approach, where we say that we can make an illiterate literate in just 30 hours of education. So basically, we all know that education and literacy are two wider terms. They are both poles apart. So our main motive is to make them literate, and for this we have a literacy toolkit, which literacy material, which we oftenly call it as toolkit, which has been replicated into 13 different Indian languages, and now we are also working on replicating it into two foreign languages, which is one is Swahili and another one is Spanish. So we are working on that, and with this I would like to show you that what is particularly our toolkit looks like. So I'll be sharing my screen, and having we both will be having a look on it. So as you can see on the screen, this is our literacy toolkit, and which you can see it has mentioned that literate in 1 month. So 30 hours of education is our motive and our vision as well. So, and the basic thing is that if one is teaching a illiterate person, so he or she doesn't have to be a teacher. He can be a school going kid, or someone who is not an certified teacher, but he can teach the illiterate and make them literate. So what we basically have is that we use the pictorial representations and focus upon the power of sound. So this is something, a disruptive idea which we have, and our motive, our basic idea is ask, wait, and don't tell. Or like sometimes that if a teacher asks something to the student, so if he is not able to answer, the teacher will answer himself or herself that this is the answer. But our motive is to build a sense of confidence into the person. So basically we focus upon the underprivileged adults and the out of the school children. So as you can see on the third page of the
Wow,
toolkit, in
very
the lesson,
interesting.
there are three pictures being you can see on the screen. That one is violin, the other one is apple, and the third one is nest. So we ask the child or the underprivileged adult to just or the learner, we can say the learner. So we ask the learner that what is the first sound of violin. So he will say violin's first sound is v. Then we'll ask that what is the first sound of apple. So he will say first sound of apple is a. And moving on, we'll ask that what is the first sound of nest. So he will say na. So now we'll ask him to combine those three sounds and make a new word. So he will do ver and so after some time he will create he will pronounce the word as van. Similarly, in the case of car, apple, and tap, the car's first sound is k, apple's first sound is a, and tap's first sound is t. So ka, a, t becomes cat. Similarly, ma, app becomes map. So this is our foundational literacy and numeracy approach on which we work, and we would be sharing with these toolkits with you in future so that you can have a look. And moreover, we will be highly obliged and very grateful if we can work together, collaborating and replicating these toolkits in the languages which you are a master in. So
Yeah.
what are your
Very
comments on that?
interested. Yeah, I think this is such a beautiful initiative. Definitely, let's discuss this further. What are the opportunities for collaboration? If possible, I would at least want to see it in English, apart from Spanish and Swahili, because it would reach a much wider audience as well. And we can see like maybe this can be adapted to the education in emergencies context, or how can that link to that work that we really focus on. But this is something that, yeah, it's worth discussing further, I think, and definitely a resource that our members would find interesting in using to support their work if they are working in literacy. Yeah.
Yeah, so we would be meeting very soon for this collaboration and working for the replication of our toolkits into the languages which are you the master of, and we can further work together in eradicating illiteracy and the literacy poverty from the world. So with this, we would like to move to the end of this session, end of the detox session. Uh, so with this, to learn more about Global Dreams 30 Hours Foundational Literacy and Numeracy Approach, visit to www.globaldream.guru, or you can also WhatsApp us on 740-840-6000. I would like to thank Ms. Nitali Axteen for coming to our session and telling us such wonderful things about INEE. And also, thank you very much to the lovely audience for their kind support and their time which they have given to us. And thank you again, ma'am. Thank you for joining, and thank you for accepting our invitation here and coming with us on Detox.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. And I'm more excited to get to know more about Global Dream and its work and how we can engage moving forward. Yeah, thanks for this opportunity.
Sure, ma'am.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thanks. You too. Bye.